Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who doesn't know how long this video is going to be. You actually have the advantage on me. You see, I don't have a script, I use notes, I don't edit, so you know exactly how long I'm going to be talking, but I don't know. And I have so much to say about Tyler, the Creator, and his album Call Me If You Get Lost. I have so much to say, probably partly because it is a very intertextual album, which if you don't know is a very fancy word for a very simple idea, a piece of art that refers to another piece of art. And two of the things that are referenced in this album are two of my very favorite things in all of human existence, in all of human culture. The Wu-Tang Clan and Charles Baudelaire. Now the Wu-Tang Clan references are pretty clear and throughout. I mean, the album cover itself is a rough parody of the Ol'Dirty Bastard album cover, A Return to the 36 Chambers. Funny story, I actually have 2 copies of this because I ordered one from BMG Music Service, and one of them, even though they're identical, one of them, instead of having Ol'Dirty Bastard, has Freddie Fender, a Tejano country music star, and the other has the real album. I've never labeled them because I like the chaos that comes with not knowing what am I going to hear. Now obviously we have that kind of reference to Ol'Dirty Bastard, and we'll get into the differences between the covers, but it's also the sound. And this is the thing, you know, Wu-Tang sound-alikes are pretty big right now with Griselda and their entire school and even The Alchemist and a lot of other great producers who are sort of trying to mine that feeling. But what makes this album by Tyler, the Creator, interesting is it's not as simple as other people's aping of the Wu-Tang Clan. It's not just grime, it's not just kung fu samples, but the way that drum breaks are used. And I'm going to be going back to this quite a few times. This is an album, you know, we're living in a time where drum machines are more important than drum breaks, where the hi-hats and the 808 sounds is what matters. Here we see a return to real break beats, which are the sections of a song taken out by a hip-hop producer and looped to make a drum beat. Something about the usage of break beats and bass together creates this sort of atmosphere which reminds me more of the Wu-Tang Clan than even the Griselda albums. The whole thing sonically is bolstered by this other throwback element of having DJ Drama just shouting the whole way through, like it's some old mixtape that I downloaded off of LimeWire 20 years ago. Just some guy, you know, like, it used to be you would like download these things and you wouldn't know what would be on them, and it'd just always be some guy being like, "Whoa, who kid? Oh shit! Remix!" Just some guy talking, and it gets you totally pumped up. So it's this funny mixture of like this cool kind of grimy feeling, and then this cool kind of whoa new thing. But let's get to the French elephant in the room. I am a professor of French, and Charles Baudelaire is my favorite poet. I do have a favorite poet, and it's him. And the question is, why does Tyler, the Creator, call himself Tyler Baudelaire on this album? There are 2 superficial reasons, which I don't like. The first one is that he read Lemony Snicket as a kid, and that's the name of the children. I don't think that's it. The other is that it's just a cool poet name, you know? He's educated enough to know the names of different poets, and maybe he likes Rimbaud as well, but he didn't want it to be confused with, you know, Rambo, or maybe, I don't know what. I'm not going to accept that either. I'm going to try to go deeper and understand what is it about Baudelaire that he is channeling, intentionally or unintentionally. Now, I'm not a Baudelaire expert at either. I mean, I've studied him, I've read everything he's written, and I've written a paper about him, but as far as academics go, I'm not a real expert. I don't have my copy of his complete works with me. It's at my office where I work. But there's a picture of me at age 20 when I bought a copy of his complete works. You see that face I'm making? That's me saying, I don't understand what I'm doing, and kind of laughing at myself. I felt that way actually at times with this album as well. So why is Tyler, the Creator, going with this Baudelaire thing? Well, I thought maybe, well, he's most famous probably for the way that he helped to define the question of modernity. Okay? So modernity, he defined it as being, and I'm going to quote here, translation, the transitory, the fugitive, the contingent, the half of art, and the other half is the eternal and the immovable. So he's able to create this theory about art as being part what's new and part what's eternal. It's a very nice kind of poetic theme which comes back over and over again. I thought maybe that's what Tyler is connecting with, because I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. You know, I reviewed his last album, Igor, and I didn't actually like it that much. But I never looked down on it. I always sort of assumed that it was just that I didn't quite get it, not that it wasn't quite good. So I'm assuming a lot of intelligence and a lot of forethought on Tyler, the Creator's part. But I don't think modernity works with this album. I don't think that's what the theme of this album is. Could be too that Baudelaire was one of the greatest in terms of mixing together the sacred and the profane, the beautiful and the ugly. I mean, his most famous collection of poems is called The Flowers of Evil, and he has a very famous sonnet in which he talks about his love for a woman by describing a carcass that he finds on the road. Okay, like this kind of like weird, ugly, proto-goth, darkness and all that. But I don't think it's that either. I thought maybe it'd be a question of exile. My favorite poem of Baudelaire is called Le Cygne, the Swan. Spend the rest of your life studying it if you'd like. But I don't think that's it either. I thought maybe it was Baudelaire's existence as one of the fathers of the concept of ennui. You know, somebody who's able to talk about the nature of feeling bad and really help to announce a lot of the themes that would go on to define what we think of in terms of a kind of slightly depressed, intellectual, existential position. But it's not that either. Instead, what I think he's getting at here is Baudelaire as a introspective but kind of secret romantic. There is an undercurrent to Baudelaire's works, not the major current. I've looked up some people's theories on why does he go as Tyler Baudelaire, and they're all like, well, Baudelaire loved travel and love, and that's why this album about travel and love is attached to Baudelaire. That is way too simple. That is simplifying Baudelaire way too much, okay? But this was a current in Baudelaire's work. And I believe there's one poem in particular which serves as the template to understand better this album, Call Me If You Get Lost. It's called Invitation to a Voyage, Invitation au Voyage. And that's what this album is. It is an invitation to voyage. Now, it's not just to anybody. I think it's partly to specifically one woman, much like this poem was an invitation to one woman to go with him, I believe it was to Holland. And this whole idea about like, this whole way through, he's using all of his wealth and his influence to try to convince us to travel, to see the world, to have a passport, which as a French professor, I very much appreciate. So let me read a little bit of a translation of this poem to give you an idea. And if you know the album well, I think you'll feel it. My child, my sister, think of the rapture of living together there, of loving at will, of loving till death. In the land that is like you, the misty sunlight of those cloudy skies has for my spirit the charms so mysterious of your treacherous eyes shining brightly through the tears. Là, tout n'est qu'ordre et beauté, luxe, calme et volupté. There, all is order and beauty, luxury, peace, and pleasure. I said that last one in French and in English because I think this is where we are. Order, beauty, luxury, peace, and pleasure. That could have been the subtitle to this entire album. Order, beauty, luxury, peace, and pleasure. If you'd like to know more about Charles Baudelaire, you're in luck. Fleurdumal.org, just look up Baudelaire poems, it's the first thing that pops up. Has his entire catalog in French and translated multiple times in English. Spend some time there. Be like Tyler, learn more. But part of what makes this so great is his theme of travel. I've never really heard a rap album about travel. I mean, yeah, okay, so, you know, West Side Gun on the Makami album talks about being on the beach. And often there's travel as a flex, but like where I'm going so luxurious, to the point where the Côte d'Azur with the southern coast of France is like a car. It's not an experience that you go through where you learn and you grow and you see and your mind expands, but it's like you can check off your list of baller things to do is to go there. It's not about drinking rosé on Saint-Tropez, right? It's about really traveling, which points to what makes perhaps Tyler so engaging, is that that's a really good usage of your money. And finally, the most interesting theme in the entire album, which I don't think is tied into Baudelaire or Wu-Tang Clan. The only album that actually reminds me of this thematically is Chance the Rapper's last album, which I liked. You can dislike this video because I thought that was a good album. And that's the theme of gratitude. He's a happy man. He is expressly a happy man. He is not keeled over on lean and thinking about killing himself, and he's not out of his mind, and he's not super sad, and he's not any of that. He's able to just talk about being not sad. He's able to talk about the blessings in his life. It is an album partly about gratitude. If you don't know, I'll give you a little life lesson here. The only key to happiness is gratitude. That's it. There's no other way to achieve happiness other than gratitude, being thankful for what you have. And he tells us what he has: order, beauty, luxury, peace, and pleasure. All the way throughout, there is the hint of the thing that could be causing him the pain. And there is pain in this album. It's this other theme that goes all the way throughout, which is that of failed love. There's a woman, she had a boyfriend, and they flirted a lot, and they hung around a lot, and then they ended up not dating. And that's one of the major themes of the album. I think that ties in a lot to this concept of Baudelaire as well. He was, like many poets, trying to use his poetry to seduce women, trying to write sonnets that talk about the fleeting nature of life and how you have to learn to enjoy life, which usually involves sleeping with me. There is kind of that. There's a real poet's effort to seduce a woman. Although I would say that Tyler's much more honest than Baudelaire ever was. So let me give you an example of what this album's like. My personal favorite track, and sort of show you how the whole thing comes together. What is it that makes this such a surprisingly great? I say surprisingly great because, Igor won the Grammy for Best Rap Album, which it didn't deserve. I would have been fine if it won for Best Album, but it wasn't a rap album, and even he said it wasn't. I liked that, but I always knew that, this guy is something else. He produces his own beats. He does his own rapping. He's on a whole nother level. And I feel like he's actually achieved it here, even more than on Igor. Let's talk about the song Massa, M-A-S-S-A. In my opinion, this is the best beat on the album. The best rhymes, the best production. It's just him and DJ Drama hyping him up. And it took me forever to figure out what Wu-Tang song does this remind me of. This is what I'm talking about. The similarities with Wu-Tang are not superficial. They're deep. The interval between the bass notes that are playing on this song, do-do-do, do-do-do, are, I believe, the same interval in the song Protect Your Neck off of the first WuTang Clan album. I did this. If you listen to Protect Your Neck and Massa back to back, they feel like they're in conversation and that they just develop with this great sound together. It is the bass that dominates in the song, a great drum beat underneath, some other 70s songs come in, some keyboard, some harpsichord. I listened to this album, 5-6 times since it came out yesterday. 7, 8, 9, a lot of times. And when you listen to it in the car, you miss so much, but when you listen to it on headphones, you hear all these little things that he's doing as a producer. His beats are often quite deceptively simple, and then you keep listening and you see he keeps adding things in there that you don't expect. He talks about slavery. The song's called Massa, so you might think it's a politically conscious song, but it's not really. At least not as far as I can tell. And please correct me if I'm wrong. If you see this as a more political song than I do, I don't. This appears to be one of the central themes of the album about what his freedom really is. What is the nature of his freedom? Not the global freedom against slavery, but Tyler, the creator's freedom, is to travel. Is to do what brings him joy. As he says, do what brings you joy, that's your luxury. Order, beauty, luxury, calm, and voluptuousness. I don't know how I translated that before. So this whole song is about the growth that he has felt from growing up and leaving. The first time he felt alive was when he left Los Angeles. And he talks about when he was 23, here's a line from him. When I turned 23, that's when puberty finally hit me. My facial hair started growing, my clothing ain't really fit me. That caterpillar went to cocoon, do you get me? I think that's a reference to the mustache that you get, which is like a little caterpillar mustache when you're in puberty, but it's also actually growing. And the metamorphosis that you have when you grow up to be a man. He later goes on to defend the fact that he didn't come from wealth. And this is a fascinating idea that he has to defend himself because he's so intellectually strong and so clearly educated and not necessarily educated. I don't know anything about him. I don't know if he went to grad school or what. I think he started pretty young, so I don't know what level of education he has. But he's at least very self-educated and extremely intelligent, and no one out there is smarter than him, right? So the idea that he has to defend himself as actually coming from the streets, despite the fact that he has the intelligence of somebody who's been given much more privilege to learn things. And he just like builds this whole kind of story around him, around who he is. Like as the song gets toward this midpoint, he just gets so lush with these keyboards and the drums are really loud and all these textures and the pianos are crazy and the voice just gets louder and he just keeps throwing out these little awesome lines you just don't expect to hear in hip hop. I'm on the hunt for perfect, but decent is what I've been on. The key to happiness is gratitude. I'm on the hunt for perfect, but decent is what I've been on. That's great. That right there should be your model for life. He even makes vague reference to his bisexuality, saying that everyone he's ever loved had to be in the shadows, which is pretty interesting, an interesting idea. And then he ends the whole thing talking about his status as an artist and what is it that he has to do, right? I'm grateful for you being hateful, you eat at me, you got your plate full. But one line before that is what I really want to emphasize. He says, I'm conscious, I know my hands meet when I bow. I think that's another one of the central lines of the album, in addition to order, beauty, luxury, peace, and pleasure, is this concept of his hands meeting when he bows. This is him supplicating before his own existence in thankfulness for what he has. And a lot of the album too is him bragging or defending his position. You can't relate to these things I say with these instrumentals, whether it's wealth talk or shit that's painful. I paint full pictures of my perspective on these drum breaks just for you to tell me it's not good from your lunch break. Beautiful, a weird, bizarre ending where it kind of cuts off, and the whole thing just has this energy and this power and this intelligence that just cuts all the way through. And what I love is what he says is, he's trying to say things from his perspective, and sometimes it's just about being rich, and other times it's stuff that's painful, but he's giving it all to us. Okay, let's go through the rest of the album. Okay, I'm gonna go through the rest of the album, track by track, in my pink Citroën, and we start with Sir Baudelaire. Okay. I didn't know if I was gonna go into this, but you can't call Baudelaire Sir Baudelaire, okay? That's not okay. It's not. We're talking France after the Revolution. A lot of people had to get their heads cut off to get rid of nobility, okay? So there's no Sir Baudelaire. He was not in favor of nobility or of the monarchy. He, much like other people, lamented when Napoleon III came over and reinstituted an empire. So just Sir Baudelaire. I know it sounds cool and it sounds sophisticated, but in the eyes of a French professor, it's like, damn it. But still, a beautiful, beautiful beat, which he just lifted completely from Conductor Williams's beat. Conductor Williams's beat for West Side Gun. There's a fair amount of that on here where he just takes beats. And at times, I don't know. Is this a stylistic decision to just take beats from other artists and rap over them to make it sound more like a mixtape, like the ones that DJ Drama did, where he would have, often people rapping over other people's beats, right? Like part of what makes a mixtape is it's not as important who wrote what song or who wrote what beat. You can just have people on top of it. So is that why it's this way? Is it intentionally not as creative as it could be because he's taking the Conductor Williams beat? Is it one of those things, one of those Eddie Murphy meme deals where he goes like that? I think it is. I think it's intentional. The first lines are the sun beaming. This reminds me of that poem I previously mentioned, La Charogne. Le soleil rayonnait sur cette pourriture. The sun beamed on this trash or on this disgustingness when he's talking about discovering the carcass, which he eventually compares to his love. He talks about passport being thick, needing an afro pick, kind of going on and on about this idea of the passport. That's why the difference in the album covers is this album cover is for getting food stamps, right? But the cover of Tyler the Creator's is like a travel card. It's actually supposed to be a passport, right? There's no such thing as a travel card. It's a mythical document, but I think it's supposed to represent that, and I think that's his idea. I think he's doing the Eddie Murphy meme thing again, where he's trying to be like Ol'Dirty Bastard, but much more worldly, much more educated. He references his fashion line, Golf Le Fleur. I don't know if that's supposed to be a reference to Les Fleurs du Mal by Baudelaire, the Flowers of Evil. I'm not sure. But I just love the energy of this, of getting psyched up, and DJ Drama just talking. When I put this on in the car, my family and I, we were driving to Syracuse, New York to look at countertops for our kitchen. That's gangster. So we were driving out to Syracuse to look for countertops, and I had the music and I had it pumped up, and we were driving, and gangster, Corso, all that stuff. Like, it has just this. It actually reminded me of like driving through New York City on a Saturday night. Sometimes I'll go to New York City and I'll put on Hot 97 or something, and if there's like a good DJ going and the rap music is playing and the cars are speeding, you just get like just adrenaline just pumped up. And Tyler, the Creator, is able to do that throughout the entire album with this. Next track is called Corso, a beautiful beat. Just everything flows so nicely from one to the next, which gives it the feeling of listening to a mixtape. But again, there's so much depth to this beat. It changes in the second part, and DJ Drama's like moving all over the place, and the synthesizers keep moving in all over the place. His rhyming actually reminds me a little bit of Pusha T style. I don't know if that's on purpose. He makes his first reference to, quote, trying to take somebody's bitch because I'm a bad person, which he'll get to later. And he says that when there's just piano and then the drums coming in. And there's so many production details on this album. It's fascinating. And he talks about this regret that he has and makes something of an anti-capitalist complaint or description when talking about how he uses money to try to paper over the feelings of pain that he has. I think he's actually called himself Tyler Pascal. Pascal is an older French philosopher, Blaise Pascal, from the 17th century, who wrote a lot about divertissement, diversion, the way that we do things just to divert our facts, divert our mind from the fact that we're going to die. That's why in French there didn't used to be a word for fun. It was just divertissement, diversions. And I think he's talking about that here. I've actually already published a paper in an international journal about Jay-Z and using Jay-Z as an example of Pascal, because he's constantly talking about his own self-worth and how he uses money to paper over his sense of worthlessness. But here's Tyler's attempt. Moving, losing grip on my doings, eyes is crying on the jet cruising, bout to spend millions just to fill the void up. Okay? The void, which is, okay, the spiritual void, but it's also an existential void. Drama, I need you. Yes, sir. Can you turn the noise up? Can you turn the noise up? Can you turn the noise up? And while he's saying that, Drama's going, go, go, go. And it gets so loud, and you feel it, and you feel excited, and you're actually in the mode of where you're like, I'm thinking about my own death, and I'm thinking about all the things that make me sad in life, and what's going to happen. And then the music gets louder, and you start to forget. It's happening while he's saying it. Turn the fucking noise up, N-word, my heart broken. Remember, I was rich, so I bought me some new emotions and a new boat because I'd rather cry in the ocean. Perfect example of exactly what Pascal was explaining and the difficulty of being a human being. You can't fill the void. You can't buy a new emotion. He's using irony. Tyler's using irony, and he's using it very well. And then he finally tags it all with saying he doesn't like using the word bitch, but it just sounds cool, which is true. It is a word that always sounds cool, but should never be used. Lemonhead is the next song. Super badass beat, this really deep horns. Reminds me of like Hudson Mohawk working on New Slaves with Kanye. That kind of like deep horn sound. But just the way it's manipulated is really nice. Another reference to Ol'Dirty Bastard on here. And a gratuitous reference to the Flip Mode Squad. Super underrated album. DJ Scratch has like a couple beats on this album that are some of the best goddamn beats in 90s hip-hop. I might do a video about that someday. If you don't have it, it's a good one. So he references that. Nice additional rapper by someone, 42 Doug, kind of more modern sounding rapper, a little bit boring, but it's nice because Tyler's so like intellectually exhausting. It's nice to have someone who isn't quite up to him, and like weird auto-tune on him as well. And then like the horns come back in after some things drop out, and then out of nowhere Frank Ocean comes in talking about loving art and life, tying back in these themes of gratitude. What's Your Name is sort of a low point. Based on my research, it is just a straight sample from an H-Town song. It's all about seducing somebody, but it's about like falling in love with someone you meet. I do like the fact that he gives a recipe for French toast and then says we should go to Cannes together and then says we should go to a French disco. This is, much like Baudelaire, invitation au voyage. This is his invitation to go on a trip. Except then there's the punchline, he doesn't even know her name. This is, of course, the reality of many love poems which are written to women who don't exist except in the mind of the poet, right? That's part of the problem with poetry, is often it's written by men who are trying to seduce women, and those women only exist as an object of the poet's desire. And that's what we're having here. Ty Dolla $ign is appearing. I love Ty Dolla $ign. I love every time he's a guest singer. I've listened to his albums. I don't like them. I would never review them because I'd give them all bad reviews. But every time he's on a song, I love his voice. Another nice boring guest spot by Young Boy Never Broke Again. It's nice to have a break from all the Tyler brain stuff. We then get to Lumberjack, which is a single that's been out for a while. My son was like, oh, I know this song. Later, by the way, my son said, I think this is the best album of the year. I don't think there's anything even close. Nothing you've played for me, Dad, is even close to as good as this. So, for what that's worth, this album does have AOTY for at least one of my family members. So I want to talk a little bit about what makes Lumberjack such an interesting song. Going back to this idea of the whole album trying to be like a mixtape by taking old beats. Yes, this is a straight bite, a straight steal from the RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan, his solo project with the Gravediggaz and their song 2 Cups of Blood. But I just want to take a little bit more time, because it interests me, to talk about what is actually being sampled here. Because what happens when you sample a sample? What are the Gravediggaz sampling? The Gravediggaz are sampling a drum beat from a band called Lafayette Afro Rock Band and their song Hihachi, Hihache. It's a very typical drum beat, a drum break. It's the beginning of the song. I thought just for fun I'd go on who sampled and I'd do a little bit of archaeology. Go back, who sampled this beat? Because the thing about this beat is it's so good. It's got this late hi-hat open and close. It is so funky. It's how late it takes to you hear it and you just get into this groove. It just immediately sets you into this. And on the song Lumberjack, Tyler gets us there. But you know, it was the first time, at least recorded, that this was used as a sample. In one of, I would argue, the 10 best hip-hop songs of all time, produced by Marley Marl, one of, I would argue, the top 10 rap producers of all time, the song Nobody Beats the Biz by Biz Markie, off of this album. The funny thing is that this drum beat, this beautiful, like you don't hear it because all you hear is the Fly Like an Eagle sample. I always just assumed that it was taking the drum beat from Fly Like an Eagle and chopping it up, but it's not. Marley Marl is on a whole nother level on this song, taking the Fly Like an Eagle and mixing it with this drum break from Lafayette Afro Rock Band. Continuing on my research, I discovered something else which somehow escaped my attention. The same way that Fly Like an Eagle distracted me so I didn't even pay attention to where the drum beat was coming from, Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. What do you think of? You think of that, the Underdog theme song, right? What's happening underneath? The RZA is sampling Nobody Beats the Biz. He's not even sampling Lafayette Afro Rock Band. He's sampling Nobody Beats the Biz. How did I not know that two of my favorite songs, 2 songs on my list of top 10 rap songs of all time, one contains a sample of the other? It's just such a beautiful example of what hip-hop can do. Where just some guy recorded some drum beat on some funk rock song 50 years ago, and then all of a sudden, somebody in 86 or 85, I don't know, when did this come out? 86, right? 88? Oh, fine, 88, comes up with a sample, and then 5 years later, the RZA takes it, and he's able to do something with it, and then 20 years after that, 25 years after that, we have Lumberjack taking that same drum sample. It's just awesome. It's just great hearing it, and it's used so nicely. It's a very weird song. The original song is weird by the Gravediggers. This one's weird. It stops and it starts again. It's so sparse and dark and awesome. It feels like the Wu-Tang Clan without feeling like it's trying to sound like the Wu-Tang Clan. I can't really describe it. I'm having trouble, okay? I'm going to be talking here for a long time. It's already been half an hour. It's hard to describe how good this music is because how can I tell you that it feels like the Wu-Tang Clan without sounding like the Wu-Tang Clan while sampling the producer of the Wu-Tang Clan? I can't explain it, but that's what it is. Maybe I'm using too much nuance, which is one of the great themes in the album. That's my nuance. Used to be the weirdo, used to laugh at me, listen to me with their ears closed. My daughter goes, what does that mean? You can't close your ears. My wife goes, yeah, but haven't you ever felt like that people don't listen to you? I feel that way all the time. Yeah, they're listening with their ears closed. Oh, it's like, yeah, that's the power of poetry. Used to treat me like that boy from Malcolm in the Middle. Now I'm 0,000,000,000. A beautiful way of describing his wealth just by giving zeros. It's about flexing, but it's also about being happy. Get to the next song, Hot Wind Blows. Another old sample. This one used a fair amount of times, but here it's just a great 70s feel. The sample just goes all over the place. At times he extends it out, sometimes it's not. It's got some flute, some Ron Burgundy style flute, some real baby making flute right there. DJ Drama again goes to talk about being in Geneva. This really cool organ like punctuation at the beginning of each bar. There's this part where he cuts out and talks about the wind. He plays a lot. So Tyler, imitates what Lil Wayne does. So he does this thing where he seems to take on the personality of the person he's rhyming with. So, Lil Wayne, he's so many things. There's so many great things about Lil Wayne, but at least my favorite thing is that he's playful. He just does things that are funny and just kind of interesting, right? So he'll often drop out or mispronounce things or say things weirdly. And so following suit, Tyler, the Creator, who I guess DJ Drama's presence on this whole thing was inspired by DJ Drama's mixes with Lil Wayne, so this whole thing's kind of coming full circle. Like he cuts out to talk about the winds whistling, and then he makes this sound. At some point he says, by the something, treat that last part like you ain't saying nothing. Like he's just playing around. And then we get to Lil Wayne. And here we are, we're driving to Syracuse, we're having a nice time, and I'm listening to Lil Wayne's verse, excuse me, pardon me, the wind, it blows so hard to me, like Mother Nature arguing about some baby father beef, and I'm stuck in the middle of the sandwich like slaughter meat. Like, what? He's comparing the wind and him, and he's being a custody between the wind, Mother Nature, and at a certain point, he just like drops out and he starts to sing the hook, and then he goes back to rapping, and he just starts rapping so fast and incomprehensible and comprehensible at the same time that I heard the song and I just screamed, damn! And I slammed my radio to turn it off. Because in my mind, I was the only person listening. I thought my kids were on the phone. I thought my wife was like looking up, making sure we were going to the right countertop place, because there's a lot of them in Syracuse for some reason. I thought that's what was happening. And they're like, Dad, what the hell? I was like, oh, I had to just stop. Like I had to stop and just soak in, because when Lil Wayne tries, nobody is better than Lil Wayne when Lil Wayne's trying. And he's trying on this verse. And I was just having this moment. And I was wrong. So this is my apology to my family. I'm sorry for stopping the song. They just wanted to keep listening to music. They heard it. They heard it was a great verse. They didn't need to make some kind of big declaration. Kind of a funny moment. Then we get to Massa, then we get to Run It Up. Synthesizers kind of start off before we have what I consider to be farting horns all the way through. Nice layers, not a particularly good beat. A little too many voices here. Some interesting singing, slightly modified singing. This reminds me of what I didn't love about Igor. And I don't know, I mean, I love some of the lyrics here. Treated nuance like it's a nuisance. That's how I often feel whenever I'm arguing with people online. Talking about how other people peaked in high school. And it's part of another theme of the album of like, go for your dreams, you can do it. Manifesto is... Do you see why this video has to be so long, by the way? I'm looking at it, seeing 35 minutes now. I'm like, damn. These folks clicked on this even though it's going to be this long. How many jokes can I make about myself driving to Syracuse to make it worth it? But let me tell you, it's not me who makes it worth it. It's Tyler, the Creator, and the song Manifesto, which is a song about the Black Lives Matter movement. No, it's not. It's a song about being black during the Black Lives Matter movement and the pressures of being black. It's not enough to be mistreated by society. Systematic racism is not enough. Your reaction to systematic racism is going to be judged by other people, and you, regardless of how you feel, how you process your own life, you have to please them. That's what this song is about. We need this song so goddamn bad. We need this song more than we need another song talking about George Floyd, which we need more songs like that too. But part of being oppressed is having to answer questions all the time. And I'm saying this as somebody who doesn't know. I'm not oppressed in any conceivable way. I'm saying what I have heard from people who I care about, who have been in this situation. He doesn't get to be an individual. He has to answer. He has to say something. And he has to say something in a way that other people agree with. And he's able to tie this all in with cancel culture and the idea that everything he's ever said is going to be held against him because he used to be a lot more controversial in the past. And he's talking, internet bringing up old lyrics like I hide the shit, what's your address, I could probably send you a copy, bitch. Just like going in. And like this is the pressure from Twitter for black celebrities to weigh in and say a certain specific thing. In order for there to be true equality, some people should be able to just speak for themselves. If Tyler, the Creator, does not have the freedom to not answer, what do you think about Black Lives Matter, then we have not achieved any form of equality. Because I'm not asked, this guy, what do you think about Anders Breivik? I'm not asked to answer for anything that any bad thing a white person does. I'm not asked to speak on behalf of people who look like me. I'm just not. Anyways, and it ends with this beautiful line. I might not have dreadlocks, I might have these gold teeth, but I'm a like you, and you're a like me. So let's be together, and let's be with the plans, but put this plastic on first, because the shit's hitting the fan. Just a beautiful line that's then punctuated with drama saying, I want to put my hat to the side. Like, remember when I slammed off the radio? Like, Tyler just dropped a verse, and you're just like, he's saying it. That's exactly it. This is the solidarity that's actually needed. We don't need one answer. We need many answers to this question, many reactions. We need to listen to everybody, not just the people who are saying the things that we would say, we think we would say if we were in their position. I think I just broke my finger. Okay, we're on to the next track, Sweet. I'm gonna go pretty quickly. I skipped this one. Okay, it's a very R&B, slow jam, 9 minutes long. It's Tyler the Singer. He's singing about sugar. It's okay, It's just kind of like singing and talking, and he even talks about like how there's so many parts to the song. And it's about this theme of this woman who he's in love with and how he's drowning, and he has a nice line. My plan was to stick my toe in and check the temperature, and now I'm drowning. That's nice. There's even a little, a woman saying French, appelle-moi si tu te perds. It's a little overpronounced on the père. She really hits the d. So I wonder if it's actually a native speaker saying it. It is nice because that emphasizes that it's call me, not like telephone me, but call me when you are lost. Which is another idea here. Call me if you get lost. Let's just circle back to what does that mean. In An Invitation to a Voyage, what he's saying, what Tyler's saying on this album, is that you should get lost. When you are lost, I am now able to deal with you. Because if I can't get lost, then you can't live a life interesting enough for me to be in touch with you. There's the other aspect of being lost in this love. It means two different things, at least on this album. And then the second part of the song is this kind of exercise in reggae. It's okay. It's interesting. He talks about his weaknesses and all that, but I just don't want this song. I'm happy it's there. It breaks up the flow a little bit, but it's not. It turns out that's not the part of Tyler, the Creator, that I like, which is why probably I didn't like Igor that much. Mama Talk is a skit where his mom brags about being very protective. It's kind of funny. I don't entirely love it because, I don't know, overprotective parents isn't always a good thing, but I'm not going to get into that now. The song Rise has a drum beat that reminds me a lot. It's not a sample, but again, it's like a feel-alike song, the same way Massa feels to me. It's a feel-alike song to Protect Your Neck. Rise, the drum beat, is a feel-like song. Incarcerated Scarfaces, another RZA beat. Very exaggerated hi-hat. Just singing about success. I like this. It's his best lyrics about singing about success. Started from the bottom and they want to fall off, like he skipped autumn and spring, summer winds. Look, you tell me I can't, I tell you I can. You tell me I can't, I did it again. Just great. Just a great, funny line. Then we get to this track, Blessed, which goes into this other thesis of the album about appreciating your life. It's all about he's buying art, making fashion, writing shows, and then he invites us to get lost with him. And he ends the whole thing. This is very much a continuation of that concept of hands rising to show gratitude. And I don't take jets like that. I'm scared to go broke. So I don't take none of this shit for granted. It's opulence, baby. This is what it is. The opulence is not the jets. It's not the money. It's this travel, it's this art, it's the ability to appreciate the good things you have in your life, where there's order and beauty, luxury, peace, and pleasure. Juggernaut is another song where I think Tyler's playing, because Pharrell is on here, and this beat reminds me of a Neptune's beat. Kind of futuristic, a siren sound. I was trying to describe the sound of the Neptunes to my son while we were listening to this. I was like, you know, like back in the 90s, and you always knew when there was going to be a Neptunes beat because it had like laser sounds. My son just goes, "Dad, lasers don't make sounds." You know what I mean. Anyways, it's pretty funny. Lil Uzi Vert is on here, has a nice verse talking about stuff, kind of boring. And then Pharrell just gives a great verse. And I think this is an intentional thing, having Pharrell on here. The song's supposed to sound like Pharrell, but also Pharrell is a model that Tyler can follow. As a great artist who does fashion, who's able to cross over, who's able to be a major figure in rap, a major figure in pop, a producer, a rapper, a singer, everything. Again, it's all this kind of intertextuality, where this is a song, the same way that I feel that a lot of the song is in discussion with the RZA. This part of the song, this song is in discussion with Pharrell, which is an interesting discussion to have. Wilshire is a long song. It's the second longest song on the album, and this is unexpected. Have you ever been in an inappropriate relationship? Or have you ever been with somebody who's been in an inappropriate relationship? I didn't say cheating. I didn't say, have you ever been with somebody and then they did that with someone that wasn't you? I'm not saying, did you do that with somebody when they were with somebody else? I'm not saying that. I'm talking about inappropriate. I'm talking about an emotional affair. Are you trying to tell me that some rapper dude from LA is going to make, as far as I can tell, the most effective and only example of a piece of art that describes what it is to be in an emotional affair with somebody and the complex emotions? Okay, you get Gustave Flaubert in here writing 1,000 pages. I don't think you'd get at the truth that is in here. This is one of the most emotionally honest songs I have ever heard about anything in life. He meets this woman and he falls in love with her. And she has a boyfriend and he has a moral compass. So a couple things that he has that a lot of rappers pretend like they don't have. Gratitude and a moral compass, okay? There's no bit like, I fucked your bitch, I fucked your bitch, which is so much about hip hop and it's just so boring and reductive and sexist and all that. Not this. He has a moral compass. He doesn't want to do that. And then he gets into this complexity of this emotional affair. Lines I could not cross, he keeps saying. But he's always playing with fire, these deep connections. The first verse, he makes a great line, and they say bros over hoes. I'm like, nah, hey, I would rather hold your hand than have a cool handshake. Thank you. Bo's having a nightmare. That's my dog. Do you hear him? It's okay, Bo. I said bros before hoes, not bros before bows. Okay. These are the jokes you're here for. So this idea of like, I would rather hold your hand than have a cool handshake. It's so sweet. It's so innocent. It's just amazing. Then the second verse, he says, we crossed the line. No, we didn't. But they did. He's spending all his time with this woman who is in a committed relationship with someone else. They have crossed the line. They have. This is cheating. This is inappropriate. And he knows it and doesn't know it at the same time. okay? And then he ends this verse with another mind-blowing line of emotional depth and complexity. And plus, y'all got the depth. I'm just the on the surface. For real, on the surface. He's able to understand when you're the one who causes someone to cheat. Your relationship with that person is surface. It's just hormones. It's just eroticism. It's not a deep connection. He's actually explaining how infidelity works. And he is accepting that he is surface. He is not deep. Seriously, this vulnerability, this wave of vulnerability that's happening in hip-hop music is making hip-hop so much stronger. I'm going to use a word here that is going to get me demonetized, but when we talk about how hip-hop is so often associated with toxic masculinity, we're not just talking about like guns. It's emotional toxicity. And here, he's just able to just be vulnerable, which of course makes him the strongest sounding guy you can have, because he's not denying things, he's accepting them. The third verse, he talks about trying to have self-control. He has everything that he wants, but he wants her. By the fourth verse, things get deeper and deeper. He spent an entire week with her, and he explains, I'm just gonna keep swearing. This isn't for children. If you're a child, close your ears. I could fuck a trillion bitches in every country I done been in. Men or women, it don't matter. If I seen them, then I had them. He's talking about the excesses of the sexual life of a rock star, of a music star, of course, admitting to, emphasizing his bisexuality. And here it is. He has everything, but what he really wants is her. And then we get to the complexity, where he's talking about this man who he is betraying by hanging out so much with his girlfriend. He ain't even call you his bitch until he see me make you smile. That threatened as shit. I'm in the wrong though. I picked you up, your energy off, and keeps going on here. He's in the wrong. And then he starts going into this whole thing, which is what happens when you're in the situation. I've been in the situation, and I've had this situation happen to me, okay? This kind of emotional, well, we're not doing anything, so everything's fine. Do you realize like how little of infidelity is involved in this? Really not much. Like a fraction of the actual infidelity. And how much do people talk about that? There's no show on TV called Cheaters where people break into the house and see someone like enjoying a latte and like discussing a movie that they liked. Felt like I got led on and pushed off a cliff, so now he's angry. No, I'm in the wrong. That was a friend. So he's getting angry and then pulling back. These are the real emotions that you go through, where he's blaming her, blaming him, blaming himself, going all over the place. No, fuck that. The energy we had, never find it, never again will find it. You're in the wrong. Gotta remind you about the times you stepped. Gotta rewind it. Oh, fuck. We talking about our kinks. Real cautious with the links. You don't do that type of shit when you're in a relationship. So he's like talking about very sexually explicit things with this woman. And he very clearly talks about how he's a bad person over and over again before ending it with discussing how he had to be friends with her. I guess this guy is only 30, and that's great. I'm a little bit jealous. I'm not jealous of his talent. I'm jealous of his emotional maturity at the age of 30. Took me almost a decade to get to where he is. And this is why he's able to be happy, because he's able to see this thing that happened to him in his life, and he's able to understand it. And it hurts him. And he talks it through, and he treats everybody like a human being. He never dehumanizes anybody. Broke my other finger. He never dehumanizes anybody. Not the girl, not himself, not the man. It's a difficult situation with bad timing, and it just sucks. And he just described it. And by doing that, he's helping out all of humanity. Because right now, there are several million people having this kind of emotional affair. Right now. And it's not good, and it hurts, and it's a sign that something's wrong. And we finally have a song that describes how it works. Just amazing. The final track is called Safari, kind of an end song, kind of a happy song, beautiful technical, like his rap is very technically proficient on here, like very kind of fast. He references getting a Grammy, which is pretty cool. And the whole thing is just a nice kind of outro. This whole journey that we've been on, we have to have DJ Drama back on here talking about traveling, we're going over here, over Geneva, hey, woo, woo, gangster Brazil, right? All that stuff. It just gives you that feeling that the mixtape is over. So, there's my review. I don't even know what I'm gonna title this video. It's so dense, and so dense. It's so dense and so rich, and it has so much with this intertextuality. It is my weekend show, so I'm going to shout out my Patreons while telling you a funny story. This album is called Call Me If You Get Lost, and I'm going to tell a bad story about myself. So when I went to Boston for the first time, I grew up in the suburbs of Boston. And when I went into the city to visit my brother once, my mom was super nervous. And she was like, call me if you get in any trouble, and, just okay, you know. And so I got to my brother's house, and I thought it'd be really funny if I called her and told her I got totally lost and told her I was like stuck in Mattapan. So I was like, Mom, I don't know where I am. I can't tell. I took the train too long. And she got all nervous and scared. And they're like, I got you. Now that I'm a parent, I wish I could go back in time, not kick my ass, but just really make myself feel bad. Because that is not cool. Not cool, Sky. Not cool at all. You don't abuse a parent's love like that. All right. So these are all my, I'm going to use, so what I do is I take the money that my Patreons give me and I buy music. I'm going to be buying this album. So thank you to these people here for helping me to purchase Tyler, the Creator's album. In case you don't know, I don't give grades. I give thoughts. So you have them. If you skipped until now to see what I give it, I have given you 50 minutes of my thoughts. I hope you like them. Please let me know. Please like my bucket. Smash the like bucket and subscribe. I would like that too. All right. Till next time, there's the camera.